The Galileo ruling was delivered on September 26, 2025. It came from the Supreme Court's Second Petty Bench. The presiding justice was Akira Ojima. Galileo supported Copernicus's theory that the Earth revolves around the Sun through his astronomical observations. Under monotheistic belief, the Earth was required to be the center of the universe, thus, he was branded a heretic. In 1633, he was summoned by the Inquisition, found guilty, and sentenced to lifelong house arrest. In 1992, Pope John Paul II officially acknowledged the error of Galileo's conviction and restored his honor, 359 years later. Japan's Supreme Court declared the vote value disparity constitutional in its ruling on September 26, 2025. Despite the principle of separation of powers, Japan's judiciary continues to rule that vote disparities are constitutional as long as the Diet is making efforts to correct them. Over the approximately 60 years from 1963 to 2024, the disparity in the value of a single vote ranged between twofold and fivefold. Not once was a vote rendered invalid. Despite being recognized as unconstitutional over a long period, the system was repeatedly judged constitutional on the grounds that remedial efforts were underway. This paradox is what gave rise to the term Galileo ruling.
Even if the edited separation of powers is regarded as unconstitutional, the judiciary continues to uphold its constitutionality as long as the legislature is seen to be addressing the disparity.
The slogan, "Change politics through elections," collapses into self-contradiction when uttered under a system that sustains unequal vote value, and has long refused to correct it. In densely populated urban areas, the relative value of a single vote is lower, and the voices of non-regular workers and younger generations are particularly difficult to reflect institutionally. The representativeness of rural areas is institutionally amplified, while urban workers are systematically diluted. As part of rural policy, farmers have been treated like civil servants under a structure that does not require labor, with subsidies, agricultural policy funds, provided as unearned income for over half a century under the name of rice production adjustment. The legislature justifies subsidies by positioning farmers as institutional stakeholders. The Ministry of Agriculture maintains the system administratively, while the judiciary avoids questioning its constitutionality and ensures its continuation. In Japan, where a subject mentality toward power structures remains strong, dissent is often perceived as a nuisance, or even as unpatriotic. This stems from a political culture in which participation is not a hard-won right, but a benevolence granted to subjects.
In the United Kingdom, the Independent Boundary Commission regularly reviews electoral districts to maintain constituency boundaries based on population ratios. The permissible range of disparity is set within plus or minus 5%, and any ratio exceeding 1 to 1.05 becomes subject to redistricting.
A merely formal electoral system cannot serve as the foundation of democracy. If the principles are edited and the initial premise is flawed, any structure built upon it becomes a fiction. Furthermore, the unusually rapid declaration of election winners has raised concerns about the transparency of the vote counting process. In Japanese elections, a clear system is in place for third-party observers to attend the ballot counting process. However, these observers are selected through recommendations made by candidates or political parties. This means that the observers may lack neutrality. While the system claims to ensure fair monitoring, it paradoxically allows stakeholders to choose the monitors themselves. The ballot counting machines used in Japan by Musashi Company operate within a verification process that is confined to internal institutional procedures, leaving little room for external scrutiny. Why do we continue to use pencils? Despite the existence of technologies such as electronic voting and water-resistant ink, the anxiety and distrust toward erasable writing instruments remain persistent. This attachment to institutional form mirrors the fixation on era names. Both reflect a syntax that treats not being updated as a virtue. The system derives its trustworthiness from its refusal to change.
Electronic voting is technically feasible and has clearly improved both convenience and voter turnout in global cases, yet Japan resists its adoption due to institutional convenience. Behind this lies a structure in which partisan interests are embedded in the very foundation of the electoral system. Japan's Public Offices Election Act presumes handwritten votes on paper ballots. The system is structured to avoid relinquishing its editorial control. While electronic voting is stalled by institutional difficulty, the integration of My Number cards, driver's licenses, and health insurance proceeds at full speed.
This contrast reveals exactly where the system finds its own advantage. Electronic voting could increase turnout and undermine the dominance of organized votes, posing a threat to the existing power structure. By citing security and identity verification, the system conceals political convenience behind a facade of technical concern. The same technologies are used to advance other administrative procedures, yet electronic voting alone is subject to careful consideration, a clear institutional contradiction. The memory of those who spoke the truth being judged, or dismissed, by the system. The friction between science, justice, and authority. That is the Galileo verdict. The system's language of liberalism and democracy is nothing more than an edited vocabulary, because voting value has been diluted and voices have been suppressed.
The structure of capitalist control. Election coverage in the media depends on sponsor-driven structures, and even the issues being discussed are editorially curated. The lower the voter turnout, the more advantageous it becomes for parties with organizational voting blocks and financial power.
Thank you for watching. Your subscription and likes are a quiet encouragement to keep recording. I also welcome your comments, they help shape the memory.